Howdy folks, back with another Less is More Raptor, and this time I'm going to be doing an Emperor's Child, or Emperor's Children, not sure what the plural is there, but if you've watched any of these other videos, I'm doing very simple, very grimdark, effective schemes for the kill team Chaos Raptors supplied to me from Games Workshop, so thanks again for that. As we get into this one, before I do a prime here, I'm just showing you that I hit all of my miniatures up with a little bit of Typhus Corrosion, just in key areas to add a bit of extra texture. I've had a few comments, people saying that it's cloudy or dusty primer. It's not, it's deliberate. I like the texture. It's not for everybody though, so bear this in mind. You do not have to do this step. I then go in and do a Chaos Black Prime all over this miniature, over the top of this Typhus Corrosion. Once the miniature is primed in black, I go in with a damp sponge with a heavy warm grey. This is a flippin' awesome colour. I absolutely love this, and this is quite in contrast, pun intended, with the other Chaos Raptors that I've done so far. All of them so far have been a contrast metallic scheme. This case though, we're going to experiment and we're going to go with more of a matte, flat looking scheme that doesn't have any sort of metallics to it. This heavy warm grey is, as you can imagine, a very sort of pinkish, greyish, sort of muted sort of colour, and I think this is a good sort of pastel base for this miniature. The reason why I started with black is because I want lots and lots of contrast in the recesses, hitting the top of this miniature with this heavy warm grey, which is quite a bright colour really. To push this contrast even further, I then go in with some Citadel Wraithbone and stipple this on the raised areas or any areas that I feel would catch direct sunlight on this miniature before moving to the next step. With this stippling, I can be a bit more precise than I would be with the sponge. On to the next step, we are going to skip on any contrast paints here and go straight for the actual shades. I'm going to be using Carroburg Crimson and Druchii Violet, a purple and a pink wash, and what I'm going to do here is experiment a little bit with mixing these two things together. The idea in my head, at least, let's see how it turns out, is to get a very raw, sort of like uncomfortable soreness looking on this armor. I want this to look like a wound that is festering. I feel like Slaanesh should be much more disgusting than they are usually painted in the heavy metal style, at least, and in this case I'm going to go for that raw, sort of nearly rotten flesh, bacon that's been left out for too long perhaps. My process here is to get a fairly loaded brush and just have both of these pots open and go between both of them, sort of wet blending I suppose on the miniature, adding purple in areas and adding pink in areas and just mixing it about onto the armor in the sort of effect that I want to get from it. I'm working quite quick here as well because I do not want these shades to dry at all. I want them to mix and mingle together, giving me various tones between purple and pink here. Now that's nearly dry. It's looking pretty sore. It's definitely an owie in terms of what his armor looks like. In my head, I've kind of got this idea of Slaanesh having sort of organic, fleshy armor that's perhaps fused to their bodies, an extension of their own skin and flesh. So that's what I'm going for here. And I think mostly it's been achieved. The next step, I'm going to hit up some metal areas with heavy metal by the Army Painter range. This is a nice dark metal in this case, not too bright against this quite vivid armor. Using a slight bit of color theory here, I'm going to go with a green, which is pretty much opposite a purple and a pink in the color wheel. I'm going to go for a green on the haft of the spear here. I just feel this will pop quite nicely, even if it is quite subtle against that pinky purple armor. Once I've laid down that olive green, I'm then going to coat it with a contrast Militarum green for a drab looking subtle green. Contrast paints are perfect for doing little details like this where you don't need to necessarily go in and edge highlight anything. This is just a really easy two-step way of getting stuff like this, paraphernalia, pouches, or any other little details that you don't want too much attention on, done very quickly and effectively. Once the metal areas are dry, I'm going to hit them with Citadel Contrast Rattling Grime for a nice, dirty, warm, brown, filthy looking metal now. I want my metal to look dark in all cases and very solid as well, and I find Rattling Grime is perfect for this. In this next step, I'm going to go back to this heavy warm grey colour that I love so much here and just do some spot little highlights on any little spikes and areas and rivets that I feel need a bit of attention to break up this otherwise looking fairly solid looking armour. It's important not to go over the top when doing things like this, just add little bits. You can always add more if you're not happy with it. In this case, I did take things slightly further with a slight edge highlight, particularly on the pauldrons and on the mask as well, which it almost looks like a Mark 6 Corvus helm as well, which I really like for Emperor's Children. Once this is all done, I'm going to lean back into the colour theory a little more and go with Goon's Grime as an overall enamel wash. Goon's Grime is quite a greenish brown recess wash that I'm going to use here. I'm going to make sure that I don't stain the armour too much by hitting the entire miniature with a gloss varnish first, and then I'm going to use Goon's Grime in the recesses to add a bit of a greenish tinge, further adding to that rotten meat kind of vibe that I'm going for here. I don't want to lay this on too heavy, I'm just kind of splotching it around with quite a large brush. I don't want things to be too heavy in this instance. We're then going to go in with some cotton buds dipped in some odorless mineral spirits to remove any residual stuff on the raised areas of the armor plates. And there we have it, an incredibly quick and simple scheme to do for perhaps a slightly more grimdark, filthy Emperor's Children kind of vibe. I'm pretty happy with this personally. I think the base works quite nicely as a warm contrast to that sort of disgusting, rotten looking armor that we've got going on there. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. It's certainly not your typical bright, vibrant Emperor's Children, but I'm leaning into the old school Realm of Chaos vibe a little bit here and making things really very yucky. Again, in terms of critique, I could have gone a bit less on the sort of highlights, I suppose, but I think this miniature overall, the aesthetic reads as chaos. It's certainly very dirty and it does look pretty Slaneshi to me as well. I like the green on the haft as well of the spear here, and overall I'm pretty happy with this. Again, this took me very little time, probably about half an hour or less, not including drying time and stuff, and then after this I went over it with a matte Winsor & Newton varnish spray as well, just to lock everything in and make it look nice and matte and solid. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll be back with another video real soon. Thanks for watching.